was originally inspired to make this lamp after I saw this one at a store in Toronto. I loved how it was a fabric shade rather than a regular paper shade. So after that, I went to IKEA to grab the necessary materials to make it. This shaped lamp reminded me of the Herman Miller Nelson saucer bubble pendant, so I picked up this one. I also picked up this pendant cord, and finally a light bulb. For the actual fabric shade, I decided to use muslin, which I had at home. The next step is to create the pattern. I constructed half of pendant lamp, and I just followed these instructions. So essentially, this lamp is made up of symmetrical panels that go all the way around and create this shape. So what we have to do is figure out the dimensions for one panel, and then you basically cut however many panels there are, sew them together, and that will create the shade for this lamp. That is like the short and quick explanation on how to create this pattern. So to figure out the dimensions of one panel, I'm going to drape a piece of muslin over it and then go ahead and create an outline here of what the panel should be. Okay, so now that I have that taped, I'm going to take a writing utensil. I just have a pen. Starting from the top, I wanted to cover this plastic part, so I'm gonna go over here. I'm also gonna indicate where the plastic ends, so right here. Do this side too. And then I'm going to draw where the wire is so you can see it through the fabric. Okay, and then I'm gonna flip it gently and then just make my way up. And then again, just do this top part. So this is the panel that I just traced on the actual lamp. I just cleaned it up a little bit and went over it with a pen so the lines are a bit darker. What you want to do next is fold the pattern piece in half. And we're folding it in half because it is a symmetrical pattern piece, so essentially this side should be the exact same as this side, and we're going to create the pattern piece so it is also symmetrical. After that, you want to take a piece of paper. I have tracing paper here, and then you're going to go and take a pencil and trace out this piece here. And that will be the beginning steps of creating the pattern. Okay, so I taped the pattern piece back onto the lamp. I've taped it right at the top, and then I put pieces of tape at the bottom and did it along these panels. And I'm just gonna go in and course correct any lines that don't seem to be in place with the actual lamp. So for example, this line here veers off out, and it should actually be here. So I'm gonna fix that. And then also at the top here, it just needs to go out a little bit more. I'm now going to go and trace this out all over again on some tracing paper with the new lines. Okay, so if things are looking asymmetrical like mine, there's a lot more room on this side. You can go ahead and fold your pattern piece in half along here. As you can see, there's a lot more room on one side. That's the line. So what I'm going to do is make sure that this line here is square with your fold line. So I'm going to find the difference between this line and this line. So it's 3/4, so I'm going to find the middle. That is 3/8. And then I'm going to make a line that goes up here and smooths out into this line. So basically by doing this, you're splitting the difference and evening it out. I'm gonna go ahead and trace out that line and shape on the other side. So now you can go ahead and put this back onto your lampshade and see how it looks. Okay, so everything lines up quite nicely. So now it's time to draw in seam allowance. So for the top part, I'm going to do 3/8 to 1/2 inch. I think I'm just going to do half and then grade it down if I need to, which just means to like snip into the seam allowance. And then on the sides, I'm going to do 1/4 and 1/4 here because I'm using a serger. And then on the bottom, this will be on fold. So this is going to have a 0 seam allowance, so no seam allowance. Okay, so for labeling, I have pendant lamp, cut 10 self, and then on fold. And one last thing, you want to add notches on the fold line on each side, and that will just be for sewing. They're not actually cut diagonally, they're cut on the fold, but because it is an on-fold pattern piece, you won't really be able to see it if you notch it that way, so I just do it, and it's common practice to do it on a diagonal. So I'm going to create a fold because my pattern piece indicates that it is cut on fold. You want to match up this edge to the fold edge, and that's 2 layers. So it's going to be right on the edge of the fabric. And for efficiency's sake, you might want to double up the fabric, which is what I'm going to do. Okay, now I'm gonna go ahead and cut it. So now you want to go in and cut the notches. Remember that your seam allowance is 1/4 inch, so you only want to go in about 1/8 inch. Okay, now that you have the panels cut, you're going to sew them together. So I'm going to start by pinning 2, and I want to pin right sides together, match up the top, pin along, match up the notches, and then pin along and match up the bottom. So these are my right sides. This will be your first seam. And you can go ahead and either serge or zigzag stitch this closed, and then when you're done with this one, you can add on to this side and so on and so forth. Okay, so that is 2 panels serged. Now you can go ahead and pin your next panel to either side. So you want to sew all 12 panels together, but you want to leave the last seam unsewn so it has an opening and is not sewn in a loop. Also, while you're sewing, you want to go in and press your seam allowance towards one direction, and then flip the fabric over to the right side and press the entire seam open. This will just help with a really clean finish for the end product. So I just folded the panel in half like this, and I'm going to go over it over here. Okay, so I just pinned 3 panels together so that the creases kind of stay in place. After you're done pressing all the panels, the next step is to close off the top. in the bottom so there isn't a raw edge. You are going to fold over your raw edge towards the wrong side, 1/4 of an inch, so basically just like this, and then you are going to do a straight stitch on top. So I'm going to start by clipping all of these ends, and then I'm just gonna go and pin this down one panel at a time. Okay, so now I'm gonna go in and top stitch this down. So it should look something like this, and then after you're done this side, you're gonna go ahead and do this side. Okay, so the last thing to do is close off this seam, and the steps to do that are as follows. So you're gonna put this around the actual lamp, and then you are going to close this seam with the slip stitch. And before you do that, you don't want these raw edges showing, so what you're going to do is fold this raw edge over 1/8 or 1/4 of an inch, and you're going to press it into place. And you want to do that all along the entire raw edge on this side and the entire raw edge on this side. So that's what I'm going to do now. So I'm just going to fold here. So now I'm going to put my shade on the lamp. Now the last thing to do is close this off, this seam here. So we're gonna do that using a slip stitch. So we're gonna start at the top right here. And also, if there's little marks and stuff, you can go in after and steam it. That's what I'm gonna do. So the first thing you wanna do is go in from the inside of your seam allowance. You want to poke right through where the crease is. Okay, so like that. And then you're basically like, the seams are basically like just meeting. So you want to go in to this side where the crease is. This is also why we made the crease, but you want to go in and also poke through and then come back out the other way like this, right on that crease line. And then I would just hold your thread if you have a lot of thread, plies, so it doesn't get tangled. Just gonna go like this. And then they're gonna connect like that. You're just gonna continue down. So I'm gonna go at the seam. I'm gonna go in and then back out. And then pull like that. And then same thing back. You can even line up your needle if you need like a measuring tool. Okay, so I just flipped it over and I'm going to finish off this part here. Okay, and then the last thing I'm going to do to close it off is just go through that crease once. And then go back through both layers and go to the other side through the crease like this. There you go. And you can also do like a little bar tack, which I'm just gonna do really quickly. You can barely see it, but it's just holding the two pieces of fabric together. Gonna snip that. Tie it off. Then so now I'm gonna go and steam some of the remaining creases out, and then I'll be ready to hang it.